Welcome everyone to EUphoria episode 12, right after the conclusion of the regular season, but before the tiebreakers got played, which does make it a little bit awkward. As always, we're available on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
And today we got to hear from the G2 head coach and head analyst about deep insights into the drafting structure, the complications of draft, what's going on with the league, and all sorts of fun stuff that you're going to want to hear.
So let's get into it. All right, welcome Vedius and Rodrigo, head analyst and head coach of G2. It's good to have you guys here. Thank you so much for coming after what was kind of a turbulent weekend.
Yeah.
How did it feel for you guys being not cheered for as much in Europe? Because internationally, you're going to lose to T1 in cheers. But
so you could say anti-cheered, maybe?
Anti-cheered. Some would say booed, actually. Some would say booed, but I like anti-cheered. It feels like a good framing.
Yeah. I mean, even when we were playing Vitality, I feel like they were cheering more for Vitality than us as well. But I guess they're also French. Makes sense, maybe?
No, we were playing SK, right? And I think it's one thing to boo if you're playing against K-Corp, because fair enough. I'll take it. And I think it's fun. I was smiling. We were laughing. We were having fun with it. But they were booing both us and SK, just because we are not K-Corp. That's like a new level. I don't quite understand
They did cheer for Bukata.
That's some very French logic right there, I would say, yeah.
Bukata played for K-Corp Blue, right?
Yeah. So okay. You want to connect the dots there?
We also have a lot of French people in our org. You thought maybe that would give something.
I also thought that Hans Sommer were doing a lot of, I still remember when he played in Paris, he got a lot of cheers.
In Paris, but at K-Corp Arena...
K-Corp Arena is K-Corp Arena.
Not so much.
Fair enough.
You're either K-Corp or you're not K-Corp.
I actually like it. I think it's like the fact that there's fans so passionate and that exists, and you go to Spain, you go to France, and there's just so many fans that care so much about their teams, and I think it's just great for the league in general. So
yeah,
I don't have an issue with it personally.
Do you think it's good for you guys to have these live stage games with this relatively new roster? I don't think I would have even asked this question last year for that team that was so long together, played so many internationals together, but for a team that hasn't experienced those big stadiums, those big international events, to have stuff like this, do you think it's helped prep you guys in the event that you do go to MSI?
Well, I think the way we handled France was a lot better than the way we did it in Madrid. I think that was I don't like how we handled the pressure and the noise and the just different environment of the Madrid stage, for sure. And I think it probably caused us to lose some games that we probably wouldn't in a different environment. And I think we came in a lot better. I think the reasons we lost maybe against K-Corp are different than the reasons we lost in Madrid, and we did actually win one series there in Paris. So I think, yeah, for sure. I think it's a great experience because when you travel to all these international events, there's always just so many other outside variables with the setups and how you're traveling to the venue and the stage and the practice rooms and all of this, and even just how you're handling between the games. And I think it's very beneficial. And although maybe our results weren't the greatest, I'm happy we went to both of those roadshows. I don't know what you think.
I mean, I think they're great, to be honest. I feel like the players of the new roster experience, all those new experiences is very valuable, especially, for example, Skillmont. There's just a rookie, right? I think the fact that he's able to play a regular season game in front of so many people is very nice for him, that he can get the feeling and see how all the chaos evolves right around him. So I think it's just great in general, to be honest. And yeah, even though the Madrid situation was probably not the best in terms of results, when we went to Paris, we had a lot of conclusions that we took from Madrid on how we should take things forward and think about as a team. So I think we adapted pretty well as a team and dealing with outside stuff as well. And I think the players also played much better because they got a bit used to how everything goes, right? Because it's very different from the studio in general.
I was going to ask how the travel was for you guys, because I think you're the only team that went to both road trips, which means that you went Madrid, came back, straight into games, and then France.
So I think the one thing I noticed for us is just the raw amount of solo queue we've been able to play this split has been less. We just have a lot more dead days to travel. And if I just go look at our past splits where we performed very well, we just have less volume. I think it kind of has hurt us a bit in some situations with regards to what champions we have prepared or have practiced. I would take the trade-off for sure, because now we have time to really ramp up for playoffs, which is what really matters. But yeah, you have less volume, and there's an uneven amount of teams traveling to these different events. Some don't do any, some do only once. We're the only team, I believe, that did two.
Yeah.
So there's give and take, right? But still definitely a positive, I would say.
Yeah. You talked about Madrid. Madrid was rough. But you lost to Casey on Casey Holmes territory. You don't seem phased. You don't seem concerned. You guys are smiling.
Yeah.
They were cheering at you. So what did that loss actually mean to you guys? Because I think SK felt like very clear, confident victory. You had already qualified for playoffs. For G2 fans, should they be concerned at all that you dropped this games to KC? What did that loss mean? Like, how do you look at that series? Like, what is the importance of that series?
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like the G2 fans should not be that worried that we lost to KC. I definitely feel like even the drafts they're playing game 2 and 3, they put up a good fight. So I'm pretty happy about that, the players. And I think the players themselves realized that. And probably the fans as well looked like the drafts were a bit whack game 2 and 3. So not worried about it. Also not changed that much for us in terms of standings. So it's like, yeah, we lost, but still have playoffs ahead, still top 4. So it doesn't really change much on our perspective, I think.
Yeah, we were much more unhappy, about the Madrid situation, because there we feel like we didn't play or prepare well at all. I think the KC series was like some drafting and early game errors that were very large, ended up having a big impact. And the game that we got that was a bit more standard and stable, I think we just won cleanly. So just the overall mood from our team after that weekend was actually just like, oh, okay, we're going to be very, very strong and very good for playoffs with a new couple adjustments maybe.
Should we ask them the specific question?
Yeah, okay. So do you want to ask or do you want me to ask
I do. So like, it's funny because this happened in 3 different ways. First thing, I told Drake, I have one specific question for you because I was doing some research on like some of your draft stuff. And then he predicted my question before I even told him what it was.
Okay.
And then there was a Reddit thread about it before I'd even read it.
Okay.
Which is, we got to talk about Rumble.
Yeah.
So Rumble on your Games of Legends page has a 91% ban rate, 45% on blue, 45% on red, and probably a percentage or two somewhere on either side. So it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you guys do not want to play Rumble in any circumstance. And I mean, the Reddit thread was asking like why, and obviously there was a lot of debate on there, but I thought, funnily enough, prior to I was going to ask you anyway, but clearly there's a bunch of people that are interested. What's the deal with Rumble? How much can you share with us? Because Rumble was clearly, based on your draft approach, something that you guys do not want to play, this split.
You want to take that one?
I can take that one. I mean, I think we banned it because we think we have higher chances of winning if it is banned on the way we want to play certain games. It's not like you're going to perma-ban it, right? It's not how it works. We can always play against it because we have strats against Rumble. But then it's always like you need to put the weights on, and it's like, is it worth playing this strat now on this draft on the champions that are open? Or should we keep it for the next game on the next draft based on the champions that are playing on this one? So yeah, we are banning very often for sure, but it's not just because we hate the champion or something, or we cannot play against it, or we cannot play with it. It's just we probably value more stuff that, maybe you'll see on playoffs, but it's just how it goes,
So it's just a priority list, basically.
Yeah, for now at least. For the first games that we're playing in regular season, how the drafts went at least. And that's pretty much it, I would say, yeah.
Fair enough.
Also, sometimes like if you want to create a scenario where you want to play other first picks, you have to ban some sort of first pick champions. And if we just value those other games over the Rumble game, then that will end up being the path I will put the team towards. Doesn't mean we don't play the champion. BB actually does play the champion, and it doesn't mean we don't play against it. Actually, I think teams who scrim us know that we play against it quite a bit and have very good results doing so. But it's just it's kind of like the path we're choosing to go down in the last few weeks of the regular season.
Fair enough.
It's hard.
Doesn't mean it'll be like that for playoffs, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's also hard for us because I think we've hit the threshold of information we can reasonably get or ask for. I think you've given a very succinct answer, and I appreciate that because it's also tricky without diving into specifics that could negatively affect you competitively.
Completely.
If we come back at the end of 2025 and you guys are like, actually, there's a complete story. I won't be surprised, but at the same time, it's like, I think it's a succinct analysis, right?
But now imagine the team who are about to play us on playoffs. We just said this. Are we going to play Rumble or not? They don't know. They think we're going to ban it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I appreciate that we've given you a platform to manipulate the opposition, to
they
play mind
gotta think
games,
about it. No, it's all mind games.
But I understand the logic. Like, I mean, in casting, we always make these tier lists for every lane, and it's based on basically what initially China's playing, because China always plays before everyone else. And so like we start with like S tier, most commonly picked is like Renekton was always number one for a very long time. But yeah, Rumble just felt like the one that was in like across the world S tier in terms of priority, not necessarily strength, but just something that teams have to play. And so I had to ask the question. So I appreciate you giving us some insight. And right now, if the game plan is not to super prioritize it, that's completely fair.
Yeah. I think reasonable. Just staying on G2 for another minute or so before we transition to kind of the league as a whole and getting your takes on some of the other teams. How do you feel this project kind of has progressed for you guys? Because I think that, again, you've lost a split now, right? Which is uncharacteristic of you. It's a high standard to hold any team to, right? But you've lost the split, and I think Yike and Mickey are finding this success. And so I think the people that want to be critical of G2 are like, they found ammunition and they're ready to go. But from a holistic perspective, like, how do you feel about the project so far? How does it compare to your initial expectations? Like, what are the goals that you had initially, and how have you guys actually like compared against those goals that you set out for yourselves at the start of the year?
Like, at least at the start of the year, just knowing the enemy team rosters, we expected it to be more difficult already straight up from last year. I think Fnatic has a stronger roster now, and K-Corp, I think people might not have known, but at least from my perspective, I was assuming they were going to be a top 3 team no matter what, with that set of 5 players. So we knew it would be more difficult. I think our goals, or like my expectations for the roster and for our project, has always been just to make all the finals. And naturally, we will win championships at some point. That's usually how it's worked, right? I think we've made almost every final since we've joined G2. And so far, we've done that, right? We made winter finals through the upper bracket and then lost. So we won 1 in best of 5s against K-Corp, lost the title, right? And I don't put as much weight into like the win-loss in a regular season setting, just because of how we approach our preparation, how we approach our practice intensity, the way it works with all the traveling. So I think it's been up and down for sure. It hasn't been a smooth ride. Sometimes you just go first place. I've been supposed to just first place the whole time. Everyone's having fun. Everyone just wants to play more and is motivated, and you're just winning, and every draft works. It has not been like that. We're challenged a lot more. But if I look at our winter split, like, I'm okay with it. I think we did good. I think there's things we can do better, and I just want to make MSI.
Yeah. So as long as you go MSI,
really,
as long as you go to Canada,
it's in my country, right?
Fair enough,
They're finally having an international event in my country.
enough,
I just really would like to make MSI.
Do you have a special walkout? That's all I'm saying. I just like, my only request is, I hope that you can make it for your sake. I said the same to JoJo, admittedly, though. So at some point,
fair enough.
I think it's a tough sell that we're going to get both Canadians in the league to Canada. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, that might be hard. Yeah.
But just think about the walkout. That's my only request.
Okay,
We need
Dylan,
more crazy
special
walkouts.
walkout in Canada? I'll be down for that.
I don't know what.
I'll ask
what is
Broadcast to get
actually
you a
Canadian.
special
Actually,
song.
yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't have to be Canadian. Just something, because
Let's ride out on a moose or something.
We need max Dylan Falco ego moment.
Oh my God.
Ride out on a moose.
Hurling maple syrup into the crowd.
See, I thought if I suggested that, I was going to be like super stereotypical. But he said, I was like, yeah, maple syrup is the angle. That's what
And you're like, thank God I do know something about Canada.
Yeah. I was there like sachets of maple syrup. Just throw them to the crowd.
beaver pelts.
Perfect.
That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. So if you get top 2 on course, I think transitioning now, though, one thing that has surprised me, you talked about the split being more difficult as the top teams' rosters improve, but also the split has just been messier. When we look at the final standings for the split and kind of the way things have shaped out, BDS not making playoffs. Ooh. I don't know how you guys felt about that one, but like, what surprised you most from the bottom of the standings? Top 4, kind of as we predicted at the start of the season. I think these are the safe bets. Everything else is a bit up in the air. So what surprised you the most, whether it's team performance, individual players, from what we saw in the regular season?
I think personally, GX was doing much worse than I thought they would do, even when they changed the jungler. And I think Heretics did much better than I thought they would as well. So I think they kind of reversed the roles, I would say. But the rest was kind of pretty much it. For example, if you told me BDS was not going to make playoffs, I was like, yeah, maybe not them. I was like,
it's like only 16 playoff now, right?
So it's different,
So you have, I feel like there's just 4 teams that are clearly better, and then like I think Vitality is like a good midfield team that might have gotten better with Niski, might not. I don't know. We'll see how it ends. But other than that, it's only 1 slot left, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fair. I would not have thought that Vitality were the safe bet.
Isn't even
Vitality isn't even in yet.
Yeah,
at the time of recording this is Monday at the end of show. So the Tuesday tiebreaker has not been played yet. So we don't actually know the 6th team.
Before the split, I'd give that one to GX probably. Like they've always been very strong in like as a scrim team, and they showed some good games versus top teams. I feel like maybe their stage games have just been a bit worse.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys obviously played against them on like the best weekend that they had, right? Overall. The Madrid weekend.
One, I guess.
Yeah. So what was the difference that you think like that you experienced that weekend? Was it just your guys', as you mentioned earlier, that weekend was a bit of a struggle for you guys, but was there anything that they did especially that weekend that stood out to you that you just weren't seeing in their big stage games? Or is there something in scrims that they're doing or have been doing that you're like, damn, this is what makes them a good team that you just don't see materialize on stage as much?
I do feel that they played good. We didn't play as good as well, but I felt like they played to the level we expect them to play based on practice at least. So I was not surprised that they played well, you know. I was more surprised that we played kind of worse, I'll say. But I think they did a good job. Yeah, they showed up when they needed to, right? So I was not surprised that they play well because I knew they were capable of doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think they were really playing very, very aggressive. And I think when you're on a very big stage and there's a lot of noise and like the crowd, everything's like shaking and stuff, and the enemy team's playing very aggressive, sometimes you can kind of run over a team in certain scenarios, or things can kind of get out of control. And I think that really, the decisiveness was really a good factor they had there in Madrid. But I think maybe more in a more controlled setting, like it allows teams to be a bit smarter around that.
So in the context of the league, one of the big changes that I know teams were a heavy advocate for was the introduction of best of threes.
Yeah.
I understand that it's a single round robin, so you guys don't get the exact LCK format. But with that introduction, how much do you think that contributed to the chaoticness of the league? Do you think that it overall introduced a sense of stability? Do you think the league leveled up? Like, do we have any overarching thoughts about how that connected to the overall performance of the league?
Like, I like the ability to practice adjusting between games a bit more and to just have that series format, especially as staff, right? We need to be able to handle those well. And maybe in some of our regular season matches, we did not handle it very well. And it's very valuable for playoffs, right? Because if you do that poorly in a playoff set, it really messes up your season. But if you do like a troll draft game 2 regular season match, even if you get flamed on socials, that can be very valuable for an actual like real match in playoffs, I would say.
Yeah, I thought that for me, in my perspective, I think it's a good point that I think what we would have assumed would have happened. Obviously, the experience that you guys get as coaching staff and that any team gets is valuable, but you would assume that it would reduce the volatility.
It should reduce the variance.
Yeah.
But the top 4 teams are still top 4. Like,
If you
look at the actual standings, I think it just felt a bit crazy, maybe. Maybe because we lost some games.
Yeah, up until the last week, maybe. But then.
Well, so I looked into this yesterday. KC only 2-0'd, I want to say it was 3 series out of all 9, which was surprising to me. But I had a sense throughout the season that KC wasn't like super dominant. And I think that was a part of the reason, because they just always seem to go to game 3. And you guys, like, Kadril makes this joke that G2 are game 1 merchants, where you guys look super clean in your game 1.
Yeah.
And then game 2 and game 3 tend to be not as clean. And so a part of me feels that if this was in the best of 1 format, my perception of the teams would definitely be different. Because, I mean, you guys...
We would have stomped both KCOI and
right.
Fnatic, right?
Yeah,
we would just look like the best team, yeah.
So the perceptions and the environment would have been different. So like for regular season, I think it helps people have a better understanding of their strengths and weaknesses for sure. But yeah, as Drakos says, my expectation was going to be that on average, the league would be better because you'd get more stage games, which is something that I've heard pros talk a lot about, because they feel that the practice you get on stage is just more valuable than what you get behind the scenes. And also just you'd get more opportunities to play, so the overall performance would level up. But so far, I would say that that's not been my initial impression.
All I'll say is that, again, if Vit win the tiebreaker tomorrow, we have the exact same top 6 that we did in winter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, the consistency factor is there. I think KC is an interesting talking point, though, because one thing that I've wanted to ask you guys forever, but the opportunity has never come up, is about the philosophy that, like, you're not going to try as hard for a period of time. It's unique to dominant teams. And I've never been able to ask you, because you've always been the dominant team, about the validity of this, because you would say that it was valid no matter what. But now KC is the team that at the start of the season said, hey, we're going to take it more easy. We're going to turn it on when it matters. And they won regular season. But I wanted to know from your experience, does it really work like this for teams where you can, or how is it for you guys in the past? Because you've been that team that said, look, we can drop a couple games. It's not a big deal. We can turn it on. How does that strategy work for you guys in the past? Do you think it's valid when a team like KC says that? Because as an outsider, I could never gauge whether or not it was actual factual statement or, a little bit of a slump.
Oh, you can take this one.
Okay. Well, at least for KC, the split, I think they took a week off when they had a break week.
Yeah.
I also think they didn't start scrimming that much till week 1. And at least from looking at their prep for this weekend, I think it's clear in certain ways they draft that they're not doing their full try-hard draft in all of their matches. At least that would be my perception from seeing what they've been doing. So I think they are doing the thing they say they are doing.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of just like the really chill, don't practice and don't play much solo queue and hope to the gods you get a good seeding.
Yeah.
I think that's not good. But we definitely very consciously amp up our volume and amp up the amount of, maybe even decrease the amount of risks we want to take with regards to draft when it comes to really important matches.
Yeah.
We need to make sure, I guess that's what would be the way we put it.
You need to get the job done.
Yeah, we need to get the job done. So for sure, like, you think Gragas mid is getting locked in if this is playoffs? Like, there's just no way. There's not a chance. So if that means taking it easy, yes. Did we play less solo queue games than we do usually during playoffs? Yes, but that's also because of travel.
Yeah.
So I would say it's true, but to a point. There's a point where you're just going to make your team worse in the long run because you're not practicing.
How do you know internally, like, what's the threshold for you in the past when you, in previous rosters in previous years, when you said, hey, we're going to take it easy, when you were like, okay, no more taking it easy. Okay, now we're not messing around.
Like, the format in the past didn't really allow you to do that. At all. Like, you just couldn't. If you, like, you really couldn't. Like, maybe some of the old best of ones you could in the past, but usually you just always had to win, no? Like, at least for the last couple of years.
3-week best of one format.
Yeah, you just kind of just had to.
Yeah, if you lose like a best of one, or if you go a very bad week, it was very sus, for the standings already.
Yeah,
and it's like only best of ones, right? So it was very volatile in a way. So I mean, I remember we had a moment maybe in 2023 when Arena came out. You remember that one against?
But like when these weeks happen and we take it easy, we usually just lose. and then after you're just like,
guys,
oh, well, that wasn't good.
Yeah.
So when you or KC talk about taking it easy, is it just in really small ways? Do you think that this mostly manifests? Because I think for most people's perspective, when they see a team come back from an international event, this happened to you guys, this happened to KC as well, and you're like not, hard smashing everyone. The first excuse that comes to their mind is one, fatigue, which I think is valid, and two, also the reason that's come up in the past that I think, I can't remember if it's you guys specifically that said it or other coaching staff that talked about it, it's like, hey, we are just going to take it more easy.
Like we look at the solo queue numbers of other teams, like, well, I have a rough idea of how much Fnatic and K-Corp are scrimming or playing in the other weeks, if you're talking about the other top teams, for example. And for sure, there's times we're taking it easier in the regular season, and I see them doing it as well.
Yeah, it's very easy to compare, to be honest.
Yeah.
Normally, all the teams have like a number. There's like, they normally play these number of solo queues, and then they might be playing more, and it's very noticeable. They're really try hard in solo queue, trying to play some stuff, or they're definitely not playing as much. Maybe they have on other accounts, but like kind of find them all. But we normally have a very good grasp on the number of solo queues everyone plays, and ourselves as well. So we can always measure, for example, we're definitely not playing that much right now, but we kind of know why, and then we make it conscious as well, right?
So when you're a fan of a top team, the final for and you're like, oh, my team just did good, they won. It's KC, it's G2, it's anyone else, and you think they're taking it easy. When do you need to be scared as a fan? Like, what's the point where you're like, okay, is it just they have would you guys have to be eliminated from playoffs, or KC have to be eliminated from playoffs before you'd be like, oh, it's okay, it's pretty reasonable to be scared? Like, what's the threshold before they've just won recently, they're still a top team, they're taking it easy?
So like last split, right, we were at third place in the regular season, and we made grand finals through winners.
Yeah.
So if we go play, I don't know who we're going to play. I guess we don't know our opponent. I have an idea of who it's going to be in the first round.
Suspicion.
I have a suspicion, But if we get 3-0 first round of playoffs, that probably means things aren't going too great in our camp. No, I'm not going to go that one. We're just taking it easy.
I'm just trying to give people an idea, because I think that people are so quick both to cope and to go for the pitchforks, right? And I'm just trying to find some more nuance.
If we were
here.
sixth place at the end of the season, then it's probably bad. But we've won the split so many times from third place that I just don't think it's. Yeah. It's not. It's an indicator for sure. Like, we're not playing our best games. I don't want to sit here and say I feel like we're the best team right now, because I don't. I don't think we're the number one best team right now in the league. But I think we can prepare very well for playoffs and contend for the championship, right?
Sure.
So, funnily enough, G2, since their history, and I had this double checked, as an organization, you've not finished worse than fourth in a regular season. And I thought you were close to doing it this split. But every time you guys come close, you always just manage to eke out a top 4 finish.
Yeah.
But it is quite phenomenal that as an organization, G2 has literally never dropped below top 4. Now, there have been many splits where you didn't win, but in terms of your consistency, in terms of regular season, it's G2 as an organization has done surprisingly
Not
well.
you guys didn't win. You guys haven't lost a lot of splits together.
Yeah.
But G2 as an org has lost some splits. I
Yeah,
don't think you
they
were
have,
there
yeah.
for those splits in particular.
Yeah, because I actually seem to remember you were part of the reason G2 was losing a bunch of splits.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's interesting where he finished in the standings and cool to have that perspective on the slumps and also to get that perspective on what that might mean for KC fans as well, who are obviously they finished 8-1 now, but the next time an international event comes around and they come out and they're not, smashing everybody in the first week, what it actually means for the team, how it changes expectations. Shifting now over to community questions. Wonderful people on Twitter and on YouTube community tab have questions. Okay, hold on. Let me read these because they're incredibly small font and I have a very small screen. So I'm just going to old man this over here.
Do you want the younger guy to do it?
Are you younger than me?
Yes.
All right. Let's start with the meme. Ryan Harris on Twitter says, "Can you beg them never to draft Oriana Nocturne again?" Let's talk about Oriana Nocturne. It's an old meme. Hasn't come up in a while.
We made jokes about the fact that Fearless won't let you run it back.
That's true, yeah.
Like, was it really that bad? Like, was it really actually that bad? Like, we lost the games. We lost the games, but was it really actually that bad?
Was it versus Top Esports that you did it?
We did it versus everyone.
Is this your Garen Yumi?
I remember that there was a specific egregious one.
Yeah,
which is
against
there was
BLG.
one
Against BLG game one.
Yeah,
Okay.
that one was very bad.
No, because the thing I remember, and you can disagree with me on this, but you did it once, which was fine.
And then
but
we
then you
won.
immediately did it again. Like
Okay.
there was a back-to-back, and
Okay.
it was the second time that I took issue with it.
So I believe we won against who was it?
Weibo.
We won against Weibo.
Oriana Nocturne 4-5.
Yeah, Oriana Nocturne 4-5. They had, I believe, 80 mid. It was very winning. Wins lane very hard. Won the game. Played against T1. We're in their base. I think inhibitors down.
Yeah, Inhibitors down
Inhibitors
and then
down.
TP behind.
I
their
remember
base.
that. I do remember that.
TP
Against
behind.
world champions, inhibitors down in their base. Oriana Nocturne winning lane, pressuring to being inhibitors down. Was it that bad? Not sure.
It was 1-3.
So you almost beat them, right?
Yeah.
And you won against the Asian team at Worlds. We think it's really strong. Our best strat. We could probably do it one more time, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's 3.
Right.
Yeah.
So was it that bad? BLG full counter comp,
And they're
can't ult anybody. Nocturne can't ult anybody. Completely useless. That one was not good.
Yeah. And then we're like, let's not do that.
And there was a lot of talk of whether we could lock it in early. Thought it was our best strat. Some people said can't be locked in early because they can do that. Some people said we should just do it anyways. It was a topic of discussion in the camp.
Sure.
Yeah. Also playing against it felt very obnoxious.
It was very hard to play against as well for us, at least when we played against BLG and Scrims. Actually, they stomped us with it pretty hard.
Yep.
So, beat Weibo, almost beat T1 with it in their base. We can try it. And then no more, never drafting it again against BLG because we were smart enough to know like it was very bad in that draft and it was very not winning and we almost won the series.
Yeah, the thing is when you first pick Nocturne, you're just committed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, like first pick Nocturne and then they start doing the full until in. We're like, how can we salvage this one?
Yeah.
You're just not going back.
That was one of those ones, like I hate those ones where you walk off stage and you kind of know it's a bit lost.
Yeah.
And
But you just look at the boys and
and
you're like,
you
come on, we can do
yeah.
it.
You just kind of know it's a bit lost, and it's like a really important match, and it's just like, oh, that's like the worst feeling as a coach.
Parent trying to shield your child.
You're the
from
one
knowledge.
ultimately that's responsible for that, right? So that is
like also there was a big thing in scrims about Oriana Nocturne. That was the thing that a lot of people in scrims don't take it. Like they are not mega focused, so they walk up mid-wave into Oriana Nocturne to get one shot.
Yeah, I figured it might be.
That one is a big thing, right? And then on stage, people are actually like very aware where Nocturne can be, where Oriana can be, so they don't walk up and then it's like, guys.
I did wonder if some of the reason we saw it so much is because I know you guys are very analytically focused, and I can imagine that this is a combo that does super well in scrims. And unlike Lucian, right, who's like the most obvious scrim champ of all time, it kind of baits you into not thinking it's a scrim champ because you don't think of Nocturne Oriana as a champion that's like,
like you think Oriana scales kind of. People think
and also you think it's not a champion like
Yeah.
Lucian where people it like does well because people play like psychos.
Yeah,
right?
it's not like a Kalista or a Draven or something.
Yeah. So I can see that.
That's a great question. Great answer. Appreciate it.
thank you.
I just love that they also fought the allegations. I love that.
Yeah, I mean,
How bad was it really?
As a follow-up,
bad, you know?
you mentioned this draft where you're just like, oh, I know this is doomed. I've walked the stage. Have you had any other drafts like that? Preferably, I don't want you to leak anything from this year, but are there any other drafts?
Yesterday, Cakewalk game 2. Cakewalk game 2 for sure. Walk off stage was like,
Yeah.
we're going game 3 on this one.
Do you think the boys felt it too, or you're like, come on, guys, we could do it?
Oh, they always like think they can win, right? They have to play the game. They also feel like they get to play the game. I don't get to play the game. It's out of my hands. So if I feel it's lost, then I can just feel it's lost.
Yeah.
How? Just out of curiosity, this is not a Twitter question. This is a Betty question. But how
You're
does
on
that
Twitter.
happen? In the sense, like, because we've spoken to coaches before, but my assumption is that you guys have a plan. You know, we talked a little bit about a Rumble.
Yep.
And so you guys, like, game 1 happens. I assume you've also already prepped game 2 because you have to play a second game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So on game 2, you're like, okay, we know based on our picks, these champs won't be available. We assume they're going to respond this based on trends, tendencies, and also who the players are, right? So you have a plan for game 2. I assume given the amount of time you have, you also don't have a lot of wiggle room necessarily. Maybe you've got like a plan C and D. But talk us through how it kind of happens where you end up in this Casey situation where you've got a game plan going into game 2 and then things rapidly go wrong.
If you can use an
I
example
can
from last
go
year,
if you
too,
don't want
it's
to
also
talk.
good.
Like
Yeah, you can
usually,
go, yeah.
You can use an old example as well
Usually,
to
it's
help.
just something you didn't
Yeah.
account for.
Right.
Usually, it's either you or players tunneling on a pick very, very OP. You think is very strong, or you need to play it because you feel like your champion pool is constricted. That's one classic one. It's just like, man, we only really won with these 4 mid laners. 3 of them are banned now, especially in Fearless, right? Let's just pick the other one, and then it gets countered really hard, and then you're just useless. That can be very, very bad. I think another one that happens sometimes is just you pick an early game champ, and then it just looks so bad, and then everyone just says the draft is bad. That's a bit different.
Yeah.
I think like if you look at, for example, Warwick into Ambessa this weekend when we played K-Corp, when we played that matchup last split, it solo carried the game, and it was like, how dare they blind Ambessa with Warwick up?
Yeah.
Oh my God, G2 so smart with the counter strategy.
Yeah. We played twice actually. last week, I think,
twice. So, but this was like the other side of it because the swaps went bad and we misplayed a bit, right? And I think the last one is sometimes like you just don't account for something. You don't account for a specific set of bans. You don't account for a 4-5 ban in a counter pick that they can do. You just miss something, or they play something you didn't think they played. And yeah, it's just like it's like blundering in chess, right? Like even the best players do it sometimes. And you just look at it at the end and you're just like, oh, that looks a bit rough.
I mean, there's so many champions in the game at this point.
Yeah,
that you can't
especially with
predict
Fearless,
everything.
like, there's just a lot more ability to make mistakes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we're also kind of trying to limit test what we can get away with in the Fearless drafts. So
If
Yeah.
you could pick
Interesting.
for yourself, like Fearless forever or no Fearless ever again, what would you guys pick? Because I imagine it's like a great time
Because
to be
we love Fearless.
like in terms of skill expression of coaching and drafting. I'm sure it's a great time to like showcase what skill you have, but I'm also pretty sure it's a freaking nightmare.
I think okay, there's 2 ways to look at it. First of all, it's just more fun and more engaging. So I would always want it to stay.
Yeah.
I think it should stay. I think it's better for the game. It's more fun. It makes our jobs more involved. We have to count more things. Like Rodrigo build like custom software for
yeah, I
Fearless
think-
stuff as well.
Oh, custom for Fearless. You're
Yeah.
Mr. Custom Software.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of your custom
Yeah.
software. And that's before we got to Fearless.
It's very cool.
We read it already. You know?
On the other hand, it's just increases the variance a bit. For sure. It makes things be a bit more extreme. Like I think like last split in winners finals, I think absolutely stomped K-Corp in draft, and I think the week after they absolutely stomped us in draft for like two of those games per series. Not all the games were like that, but at least 2 games per series when we played them back to back were just like huge draft gaps both ways. So it's just that can happen, right? So it just makes it a bit more wild. But I assume as we get better and teams get better, maybe that will decrease. Maybe that's just because it's new.
Yeah, I mean, the expected champion pools before was quite different, right? You could probably survive as a top team on like 5 to 6 good champs.
Yeah.
And then as long as you can keep up with the meta, you're generally fine. But now the expectation is much deeper than that.
Internationals are going to be weird.
Yeah. Also, the meta changes every patch, right? And it's Fearless as well. So it's like if you have a champion pool for Fearless in a certain patch, maybe some stuff is nerfed, and then on the next patch, like, oh, I actually need to learn a lot of new champions already.
Like
So-
prep for MSI, if you guys do make it, for any team who makes it, it's going to be intense because it's going to be the first time where, I mean, 1, there's so many best ofs in the format, right? So many best of 5s.
Yeah.
And 2, it's a fixed patch. And normally like we don't see until, the top 4 of a tournament a lot of times. Like you see it play-ins, you see maybe 1 or 2 picks in groups that end up fizzling out. And then you see someone cook in semifinals, some niche counter pick. But we're going to see that every single step of the tournament where like, I don't know, in my mind, like new picks are going to surface, but maybe the patch notes to compensate for the fact that it's Fearless are just really...
Patch notes have been pretty timid recently, I feel. So I'm waiting for a big one that'll just change everything.
They're not really changing. The champions are winning a lot in competitive right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
Freak needs to shake it up.
Yeah, Varus. Shake it up.
Come on, Freak.
Where's my Varus? Why are my Varus bands still
He's just
here?
out there abusing Fiddlestick support instead of changing up the game.
There was Poppy support last year. It's Fiddlestick support this year.
It was Maokai support was the original.
Yes.
For some reason they just don't get ever nerfed. I don't know what's up with that.
It's crazy that keeps happening. Freak specifically. Another question on Twitter from Vizier Alti. With so much time with the same roster, same staff, and some of the same players, how do you guys keep perspective on your own systems and habits and kind of evaluate them and call them into question when need be? Have you ever considered having someone else, like an outside consultant is the example that they use to kind of evaluate these things? But yeah, who watches the watchmen, as it were? How often are you guys reevaluating what you're doing as a structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think since we had 2 years together with the last roster, even on the second year, we introduced a new staff member, which was Duff, right? And I think we were building a lot of processes already, and then Duff came in as an outsider, and then he could see us off. So he would be like the new thing on the team, and then he could give more opinions that were like not biased. And then, we built those processes with the team, and then now we have a new team. So even though a lot of the roster is the same, the processes, we try to adjust them for the processes, right, to make them make sense. But it's not like we can force the systems or the processes, whatever, to new players like that, right? We need to see if they work or not, and then we can adjust or not. Also now, the new players, we have a new staff member as well with Memento. So they also work as someone who watches for the stuff we do, and they can always input, right? So it's not like we have the system, we're going to do this and that, we're not going to change ever. So we always keep in mind everything from people who are new for the team, because it's not because something was working before that it's going to keep working, right? So we can always just adapt. But yeah, we always have like a core that we try to maintain aligned, I would say, and that's it,
Yeah. So how much of what you guys have prepped over the years do you feel like is rigid and evergreen versus how much do you think you're willing to cut if it just doesn't?
Like getting good sleep and playing a lot of solo queue will never change.
Yeah.
That's like, but all of the stuff we do day to day, we're always kind of switching it up. If not only just to make things feel fresh and new and not make things just feel repetitive for all of us.
Yeah, the rest just gets very boring for everyone, So.
And your trust of Caps is still unequivocal, right? Still solid, steadfast.
Of course.
Right.
I mean, there's a number of questions here about that. So let's just ask about Caps.
Okay.
People, I think, this is my perspective, I think the one universally agreed upon slump in Rasmus's career and Caps' career was 2023 MSI, I want to say.
Oh,
London?
I remember it was the Annie meta and it was MSI in London. And then going
MSI in
into
London.
that split, a lot of us thought the Caps had
and
a
I think
pretty
that
bad
it was
split,
something that Ramah had there's been talks about it publicly about that being tough time. And with not a ton of detail, but like he was clearly wasn't performing the same level on stage. And then it felt like, boom, snap back in summer and we're good and it's smooth sailing. But there are some people who are like, because I think G2 is doing poorly and because Caps isn't necessarily he's having good games, but he's not, 1v9ing. He's not having those big highlight montage moments. People are wondering about his level overall. Do you guys think that that's overblown? Do you think it's fair to call Caps' level into question? How do you guys feel about his kind of level of performance right now compared to maybe the expectations that people have of him or the peaks that he's had historically?
Did he really have that poor of a split? I think he's playing pretty well. I think last couple of weeks he's been playing pretty well.
I mean, at this split, I think all the mid laners have been a bit inconsistent.
Yeah.
But I would say that consensus is that Vladdy seems to be the strongest mid.
Okay, Vladdy is playing very well. I will say he's carrying a lot of the games. Yeah, for sure.
And then I think there's actually a very active debate between Humanoid, Caps, Nuke, and Jojo as to who would then take 2 and 3. Just because, I mean, it doesn't help that you guys find yourself at 5 and 4.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of footage to point out this is where Caps made a mistake.
Yeah.
But it's the same for all those other mid laners where it feels like outside of Vladdy, it feels like that there aren't any mid laners that has kind of stood out above the rest.
But I feel like the storylines around it all can always be a bit weird because he can have a normal game and we lose, and then they'll be like, "That's what G2 is when Caps doesn't carry," and then he'll actually run it down, and then we'll win, and then someone will be like, "Oh my god, G2 is so good they can win even when Caps is doing bad." You can always spin it in a way. I think he's had an okay split. I think he's playing pretty well, and I think he will turn it up for playoffs like always.
Yeah.
I think he will increase his volume. I think he will show up. I think he's very good under the pressure. I think he played pretty well last playoffs, maybe the finals. He didn't play his best series ever, but I have full trust in him for playoffs to play very, very well.
This thing that playoffs is coming. It's like, what's the patch for playoffs?
Yeah, sometimes he's only talking about playoff patch during regular season.
Yeah. It's like 2 weeks to go, you know?
He's always very mindset on the games that really matter.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You talked about good sleep and solo queue being kind of like foundational for you guys. How do you keep your more veteran players motivated? Because you've changed coaching staff, like you've highlighted, and you've changed 2 of your players, and I assume a lot of focus goes to them and integrating them into the team. But how do you keep Hansama, Broken Blade, Caps motivated so you don't, just because you guys did deal with, and admittedly you didn't go to first stand, but you had like 2 long years with that roster playing every single event, every single thing. These guys have played for a long time. They've reached super domestic highs. Like, how do you keep those veteran players who've seen so much success on this org motivated to keep hitting those same highs?
Like, I think on G2, you have the benefit of always having the players that are just super motivated to play. Like, there's a reason Caps and Hansama are on this team, because when we have a break in the off season, what he does is he went and flied to Korea and played 200 solo queue games in 3 weeks and had rank top 10 solo queue with like crazy win rate. Like, that's just what he does, So I think that's probably something other teams have to grasp with a little more than we do, because we just have these players on our team, right? That
they just
play. Yeah, like I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, they like playing the game. Like, you don't need to tell them you gotta play the game. They're gonna play the game naturally. This is what he said. Like, we try to motivate them a bit daily, doing different stuff sometimes, but it's like not. We don't really need to go there and say, oh, you don't like the game anymore or what? Do you need to play solo queue? It's like, they're always playing solo queue. They like playing solo queue, So,
outside of what you said earlier, which was maybe when Arena first came out, there might have been
exactly. But then it's also
playing the game.
That was the thing, They're still playing the game. But that one was funny. It's like Arena came out, we're about to play Excel, and then it's like all our players are only playing Arena. And then we win game 5, mega sweating against Excel. And then you go see all the players solo queue and stuff. It's like, yeah, there's some solo queue, but there are also 30 games of Arena every day. And then they stop playing Arena and then they just won, So that was a funny one,
Fair enough.
Fair enough. Thank you to everyone who asked questions. A lot of the questions that were asked we covered at the start of the show. So if you didn't hear your question asked, maybe check the start of the show there as well, even if we didn't give you the name reference. We appreciate everyone who asked questions. Now we can talk about the week upcoming. So as of this moment in time, we technically don't know the matchup schedule for the 6 team, but I have a sneaking suspicion, given that KC in first place will pick their opponent. I'm just going to guess the matchups. I think, do we all want to guess them together?
No.
KC? No, you don't want to guess?
No. I can guess, yeah.
Who would you want to play between your 2 potential opponents?
I don't mind either way.
I think
it's close enough. Maybe KC is a bit stronger. They won the last split.
Mm-hmm.
But Fnatic also beat KC. Mm-hmm. Both of our series against them were like 1-2, kind of weird drafts.
Yeah.
I don't mind. But I do believe we will probably play Fnatic.
I also believe that KC will pick MKOI. That does make sense. It's a little bit frustrating that if there is a tiebreaker, and at the time of recording this episode, we can't definitively say what the playoff matchups are.
I mean, we can start with who do you think is going to win the playoff matchup? Heretics versus Vitality.
Oh, the tiebreaker?
Yeah, tiebreaker.
I think Vitality. I'll be very surprised if Heretics wins that one. Like, as I said before, I think Heretics got a lot of wins, and I was a bit surprised of how they won so many games. So props to them, right? I think they hustled a lot during the games.
Against Vitality, specifically.
But I do think Vitality is like a little bit better than them.
Like, it looked like Heretics really had to sweat for those wins. Mm-hmm. Like, they were close. They were bangers. They had to do comebacks. They had crazy picks. And Vitality, even like, they took even a game against K-Corp the other day. They're not maybe number 1 team in the league, but they're solid. So I would give them the advantage for sure. But it's a best of 1, right? So who knows?
Yeah, it's a best of 1.
Yeah, it's a best of 1.
Vitality are a bit of an enigma. I wonder how you guys feel about them. I feel like I ask this question every week, so I'm just waiting for someone to just tell me how I should feel about Vitality.
Upset last week was very candid. He just says that he does not rate Niski very highly in bot lane.
I don't think that anyone rates Niski very highly in bot lane.
But then he also had to respond with, that is the bot lane that 2v2 killed us. So he's like, he understands the whole enigma thing.
Yeah, it comes together. But this team is hard for me to track because some weeks they show up and they're good. Players look very mechanically good. They're on the same page. They have a very clear plan. Other games they show up and they look completely lost. And I could just say discipline or something and just like forget about it and just let it be. But I do keep coming back to this Vitality puzzle. I'm not sure how to feel
Like I
about
do
them.
notice like they switched to playing like all range supports for Niski. Maybe they thought it was closer to mid lane type
Yeah.
of chance or something. That can be like them being very smart to utilize their players. Like also them being a bit desperate to find something that works for them. I don't really know. I was really excited to see Nako play. He played very good in some games and he really, really ran it down in some games. He's been very hit and miss, but I'm excited to watch him. I think they're fine. I think they're probably deserve to be a playoff level team, maybe top 6, but
Yeah, I do feel like when the top jungle of them, they play well together in a game, they probably win. And most of the time when Knock is having a bad game, they just kind of lose. That's how I feel.
Mechanically, the players seem very high level, like very skilled individuals.
They're very strong, like solo queue players and stuff like that for sure.
It just definitely the consistency and the teamwork seems to be the element of improvement. And I guess the idea of bringing Niski in was to help smooth that over, and maybe he does. But the issue then comes from his then individual micro on the actual support. So, I mean, they're a wild card if nothing else. But even if they do qualify, they're guaranteed to fight Giant X, right? Because in the lower bracket gauntlets. And so that'll be a fist fight to the death, I imagine. Yeah,
what is your take on Vitality versus Giant X? I feel like bot lane matchup.
Well, assuming Vitality qualify.
Assuming Vitality qualify. Again,
Actually,
we're making a ton of assumptions. That's a tough one.
That's a good one, right? I think the GX thing is also a bit weird. I think they're playing much better now on this latest 2 weeks, right? Right now, they also just clean to 0, I think. So I would say GX probably beats Vitality in a best of 5. I also think they're more creative. For example, they did the Sion mid right now, and it looked good. So I think they are more creative in draft in a way. So best of 5 fearless, if they're playing well, I think they probably beat Vitality, I would say.
Yeah. But you guys probably stand that they are like a cut below the top 4.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
Is it a top 4 or a top 3? That's the other big question. Is MKOI in the top? Is it a top 3 or is MKOI kind of sitting outside watching? I think that's the position that people waver back and forth of putting them in.
I would probably say top 3. I would like to put us in the top 3.
Yeah.
Even though we did place the split fourth, so maybe that's a bit
obviously
disrespectful.
That's a presumptuous of me as well. Yeah.
Just to be 4th place and then say, there's top 3 teams.
At least you beat the top 3.
At least we beat them, right? So
we
we
beat KOI.
we can say that. So I would say top 3. But if you told me KOI won a best of 5 against one of the top 3 teams, I wouldn't be like surprised. I think they definitely have some very good days.
They seem to be like at the very edge, is my take. Admittedly, like right now, from my opinion, it would be incorrect to me to rate them objectively worse than you guys, just based on the footage that we have. Even though you beat them, from my perspective, you beat them in week 1. And so the teams are quite different now. And I think that they are objectively better than they were in week 1. And even then, they push you to the full 3 games. So I think that against the top teams, as you highlighted, I think that they generally have good map awareness. I think that they generally have very talented team fighting capabilities.
Why do you keep saying generally, Vedius?
Well, because I think across the board, it's pretty good. Like today, Super just died a bunch, like just randomly. And also Mewin does that from time to time where he just randomly dies. And like, it's a thing that just happens all the time. Like they just, this person is here, they're dead now. They lose this. Or like, these 2 people are now dead and they lose this. And so I don't know how you would even identify that as an issue in a team. Like, I'm like, if someone just gets caught out, like, is that a lack of focus? Is that just can you help me understand what happens when your players do that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of hard, right? I don't really know as well. Like, it depends how were you caught in a way. It's like, did the enemy team did something that was like, they should not be here. Why are they here? Or it's like, is everyone saying, guys, they're going to be here and then you just die anyways? Like, they're very different, right? So it's like...
True.
Yeah. Are they doing some kind of clever fast play that's risky? And
I do think, for example, Mad Lions is the team who punishes a lot of those teams. So I do feel like if you play Mad Lions and you are not focused, you are gonna get picked off a lot because they play very aggressive on the map and retaking vision. So if you're like sleepy, they're probably gonna kill you, and then they're gonna feel,
Yeah. So what is it that sets MKOI apart from the top 3 that we initially maybe unfairly discounted them from, right? Which is currently G2, KC, and Fnatic. Why are they outside? Is it individual players? Is it some of the tendencies that Vedi talked about to get caught? Is there anything that stands out to you guys that you can share without, giving away too much about why you think they're not quite in that clear top 3?
I can't really think of anything in specific. I just feel like we usually win against them. I guess they beat us last year in summer finals, right?
So is it like
different time, different rosters?
Is it a perception that like after this playoffs you feel like it could just change? Is it an opinion like loosely held, or would you be like really, really surprised?
Like last playoffs, right? They lost, I think, both their sets against the other teams as well. Who did they lose to?
They lost to Fnatic for sure,
yeah.
and then
Fnatic on game 5, maybe? Was it game 5 or no? I don't know actually.
Oh, last split?
Last place, yeah.
split,
They lost to Fnatic, yes. It was in the lower bracket.
Like I just feel like they lost to K Corp regular season, then they lost to. Did they lose to Fnatic last regular season? Then they lost playoffs to.
They beat Fnatic.
They lost
regular
KC
season.
and Fnatic last split.
Yeah,
They lost in the best of 3 to KC and the best of 5.
They've just lost a lot of series to the top teams. They only won one. That's my reason. You know, maybe they'll do better. Maybe we'll do worse.
Because, like, if I'm being honest, based on what I've seen from the regular season, I don't even think we have a top 4. I think we have a top 2, is my take.
Okay, fair.
Okay.
Fair enough, yeah.
I think that
KC Fnatic?
That's fair, yeah.
I think that,
But I'm the head coach of G2.
Yeah. That's completely fair.
So
That is completely, that's why I'm here.
You have to take that into account.
No, that's completely valid. But yeah, because the issues that you guys highlight, again, from the outside perspective, appreciate the insight. And there's obviously a lot of things that we don't get to see. And it's just purely from speculation. But I think that individually, your players are not playing at the level that I'm used to of G2. Naturally, I do hold them at a very high standard. You have talked about volume and your ability to practice.
Yeah.
But also I think that like drafting has been a very big discussion, both in interviews that you guys have done, along with like some of the more even recent drafts that we've seen where questions are asked and it often feels like that they're immediately hamstrung, immediately coming into the game. So admittedly, drafting is something that I remember in winter, I want to say going into playoffs, you said the exact same thing. Where you said, our drafts are bad, this is this, and then you came into playoffs and your drafts were significantly better. But based on my regular season, right now, these are the two main things that stand up for G2 for me that I'll be keeping an eye on to see if they get better.
I think Fnatic and K-Corp were a step above in this regular season for sure.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. Fair.
I think that it's a weird situation I'm in because on the one hand, I do agree with Vedi that I feel like Fnatic's clearly better. On the other hand, if I had to bet on G2 or Fnatic,
I remember someone had this exact same discussion last split when we were playing against Fnatic and everyone was calling for the doom of G2, that
Everyone
it was trolling.
G2 is
We're
over.
It's over.
Everyone
And
was
someone
like,
said those
finally.
words. If I had to bet though, who would I actually bet on? That's it, right?
I think I said these exact words every split with Fnatic.
Will the Gragas mid get locked in against Fnatic next time? I will.
Probably not.
You commit
right now, man.
You can choose that. You can choose that for yourself.
Yeah.
No, that's absolutely collusion. We can't have a conversation where I can choose Gragasmid and I used bet in the same sentence. There's going to be an investigation.
I feel bad for Fnatic. I mean, for the context of the league, I think it's great if a bunch of teams winning. Like, I love the fact that the LPL constantly sends different teams internationally. Like, as a spectator, I think it makes it more exciting. But yeah, their recent history is not the best when it comes to.
They get picked last in dodgeball every time.
They 100% like great team overall.
Great team. We think you are absolute best. We're gonna go with G2.
It is one of that thing where like they ultimately are the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah. Not gonna get chosen. Who knows?
For the context of the league, no disrespect to you guys, I think it would be great if they won a split for the context of the whole league, because then we would have KC winning, Fnatic winning, G2's historical winning, and then the top of the table becomes super interesting. We get a bunch of cool storylines, the rivalries get more intense, everyone gets more invested. But from your guys' perspective, I'm sure it's just we want to again.
Want to go Canada. Talk about it. Maple syrup, riding a moose. Maple syrup and a moose, please, Riot Games. I guess the last thing is, because we technically don't know the playoffs matchups yet. So, and again, you'll have to prep against one of these teams, so you can't say anything about either. Who do you think you and the players are the most excited to play again? Is it a KC rematch? Is Fnatic still the most fun for you guys? Like, what is the team that you enjoy prepping for the most of the potential matchups?
I do think they have very different like strengths, so it's very different to prepare against both. I think like for the story thing, like Fnatic is always fun. Oh, like Fnatic, nice, we're gonna play Fnatic, we need to beat them. Now with the whole KC thing where they beat us in the finals, we always have this little thing, oh, we really need to beat them now. As the revenge arc, you know. So I think right now I will be more excited to play KC at least. And I feel like the players probably as well, because they need to have the revenge, right? But yeah, Fnatic is always nice, right? This is El Clásico, as people say. So it just feels nice to play them, and they're like both teams are very good. And when we go to the matches against them, we know it's going to be like a tough match, and if we need to show up to beat them, and they need to show up to try to have a chance as well, right? If one of the teams don't show up, they probably just lose. So it's very, very matched, I think, in terms of skill.
Like usually it's just like past teammates and people you wanna win against, but they both have them, right? From last and recent ones too. So so they're both very.
I really wanted to ask about
opponents,
that because like I'm sure the relationship between Yike and Mickey is still good. Like they seem like super down to earth people and like they're very genuine guys. But I also know that like having competed against friends and obviously much slower scale, like you always just get that extra bit competitive when you're playing as a friend because so I'd love to get a bit of insight in like, is there anything that bit extra? Like, do you sit there and remember, oh yeah, I remember Yike is this champion he hated playing. We can force him on like...
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. It happens all the time. It happens for both. And I'm sure it happens for them when they play us. They're giving all the details. Caps hates playing this champion. Oh, he refuses to play this matchup ever. He'll never pick that. Like
that's how it goes. You know?
It always goes for all the teams when you have former things. Yeah.
That's
it's very make extra element to the prep always.
Yeah. Because then you are prepping, they're but guys, he's there. He probably knows about this, you know? So like the both ways is very funny.
That's cool.
The mind games, the layers of it.
That's super cool.
Final thing, just quick prediction. We don't know playoffs bracket. We don't know all 6 teams.
We don't know any of the matches.
We don't know any of the matches. But what I want to do is just, you guys said you're the coaches of G2, so you're going to tell me G2 is going to win. So who's against you in the finals? Who else is going to MSI? It's a lot to change in 3 weeks, right? But just right now, based on what you've seen.
Us, K-Corp finals again.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
UK Corp. Poor Fnatic, man.
We win game 5 riding a moose.
We lift the trophy.
Teleports you to Canada. No flight, no jet lag. Yeah. All right.
You know, it would also be pretty hype for Fnatic to beat KC on lower bracket, and then they play us in the finals. Oh, finally they beat KC, and then we have the El Clásico final again, and then they lose again.
Then they go up 8K every single early game.
No, even more this time.
15K. The number's bigger. Then we bring you on the podcast again to talk about it, and you're like, guys, but we did have a better scaling.
I don't know what the most scaling 5 champs you can pick is, but we'll find it.
It's one of those things where like we bring you on the podcast again, and it's a certain point like, so you won when you were a 20K gold deficit, and you're just like, how much was you and how much was them? And you're just kind of like, I don't know how hard I can cope on this one.
Scaling.
You know, sometimes they just don't show up on the day. It's like we'll just AI can write that podcast.
But like if you go into a series like that and your plan is like, we're gonna pick the most scaling draft ever, 3 games, and that's how we think we're gonna win this at all costs, and then you win behind 10K gold 3 games in a row, like your plan was pretty good.
I mean, that's fair.
It must.
Yeah, something went.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Like if it's a very conscious plan, I don't know. Maybe it was good.
Look, great. Well, now let's, I guess, we'll see if you get the KC run back or the Fnatic run back with a 15K goal deficit. See if you can make it possible.
Watch Koi be across from them in the finals. And he's like, well, I wasn't expecting this.
That would be the double Canada. My the only piece of esports merch I have bought in the last year is the stupid Jojo P&M Koi shirt. The meme one with like 80 pictures of Jojo. Just for MSI Canada in case he makes this. And as a side note, I do have to now buy a KC jersey because we predicted against them being the first place team. You weren't here for that. That's me and Rob have to buy a KC jersey. That's separate. I forgot who predicted G2, but shame on you guys.
A collection of jerseys from every team.
Well, so I don't have a KC one, so I have to buy it now, Betty, because I bet on BDS for some reason. I guess for content. Did not work out. They didn't even make playoffs. Maybe that's a cash or curse. Regardless. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Good luck in your mystery prep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, awkward timing in this episode. Since we don't know who you'll be playing against, but I'm excited to see, and I hope, Dylan, for your sake, you can make it to Canada alongside Jojo Pune.
That would be wonderful, yeah.
That'd be sick. But best team will go. So thank you guys. This has been Euphoria episode 12. There is a break week, but we'll see you guys when playoff returns. In the meantime, enjoy yourselves. And knowing the playoffs matchups, which we don't. So have fun with whatever those are
Have fun with those.
in Futureland. We'll see you guys next time.